This video is for couples or those trying to help couples understand and work on their relationship issues. At the start of therapy, partners in trouble are usually focused on what is wrong with the other and on defending what is right with themselves. So the first therapy task is to help them realize that the only person anyone can ever change is him or herself. And the second point is to help them see themselves, each other, and their relationship in context. They are each part of a complex individual, family, and cultural history, which includes their parents, their sibling constellation, their aunts, uncles, and grandparents, and the social and cultural context from which their individual values and practices have generally evolved. We want to help them understand these contexts as well as their work, interests, hobbies, social connections, dreams, fears, and aspirations for their relationship with each other, and how it fits into their larger relationship systems. This video is about marriage conceived of as a mutual and loving relationship between two people. Abuse, addiction, and mental illness make such relationships impossible, and make doing conjoined couples therapy impossible. If one partner is bullying or emotionally abusive when reactive, or abusing alcohol or drugs and not able to function in a sane and stable way, no real joint therapy can begin until that partner takes responsibility for controlling his or her behavior. Partners in such situations can rather be coached separately to operate in the most mature way and to make the best choices on how to proceed. A second caveat concerns the social location of spouses. Marriage, in almost all cultures, has existed within a primarily patriarchal context for thousands of years. Women have generally been considered the property of their husbands and were not on an equal footing legally, physically, financially, or in social status and power inside or outside of marriage. Race, social class, physical disability, sexual orientation, as well as gender affect spouses' status in every couple relationship and must also always be taken into account in couples negotiating their relationships. This means, for example, that if a wife is not in a position to support herself, she's not in a real position to negotiate her relationship with her husband. So asking each spouse their opinion may just mystify the situation. What is at stake for her, if she tells the truth, is a great deal more than what is at stake for him. And if she is not in a financial position to manage on her own, therapy for her might better involve speaking with her privately about educating herself regarding her financial options to help her get into a position where she can really express her opinions clearly. With these caveats in mind, and assuming both spouses want to engage in couples therapy, we often suggest they think about the proposition to work on the marriage as the following, which we will try to help them with in couples therapy. Each spouse will try for 9 months to be his own ideal spouse, no matter what the other does, and in order to be sure that his or her own behavior is not contributing to whatever problems have developed. There's no magic in the 9 months, but it does convey that it's not someone can figure out overnight, and on the other hand, it's not something one should go on struggling with for years and years. As for the notion of the ideal spouse, we suggest this means behaving according to your own values, not according to how the other treats you, being a good listener, always respectful, sharing responsibilities, being supportive, affectionate, and open, and as Betty Carter used to say, viewing love, honor, and negotiate as the principles for a good couple relationship. Meanwhile, we suggest each partner be working to make sure that all his or her other relationships with friends, family of origin, co-workers, children, and so forth are in good working order, so that they are not bringing other problems into the couple relationship and expecting more of the spouse than is reasonable. that if at the end of 9 months of behaving according to their own ideal values, they do not see anything positive coming from their partner, it will probably be time to move on. But to make sure they themselves are not unwittingly contributing to the very problem they seek to solve, they will need to work on their own behavior first over that 9-month period in order to really be able to assess their situation. Because partners usually come in feeling wronged or unappreciated by their spouse, it may take some discussion for each to realize that it makes sense to focus on their own behavior, that aspect of the relationship they do have the power to change. As with all other therapy, the focus of couples therapy is to help clients let go of efforts to change the spouse or any other person in their system and to pay attention to their own part in the relationship, the only part they really have the power to change. We begin by exploring the context in which the couple relationship has developed, using the genogram and a family chronology as basic tools. Because couples may not see their family of origin or other systems as relevant, the therapist's questions will be important to help them see the connection between their relationship and the relationships they've been in before in their own families. What kind of marriage did your parents have? What aspects of that would you want to have yourself? What parts would you want to make different? What are the best couple relationships you've seen? What was it in those relationships that you felt was good? It's always important to get family history from both partners early on so that we can see how their couple relationship fits into their personal and family narrative. We will, of course, want to learn about other key people in each of their lives: children, siblings, parents, friends, co-workers, godparents, favorite uncles, and so forth. Interviewing them together can help spouses listen to each other, perhaps from a new vantage point, but the process also allows us to see whether partners can listen attentively to each other without interrupting to correct the other's story. There are many dimensions of spouses' social location and background that are important to take into account: cultural and racial background, family of origin patterns, social class and social location, sibling constellation and patterns, education, finances, power inequities between spouses related to any of these or to gender or sexual orientation. Once we have the basic history of the spouses, we want to discuss the issues that have brought them in and the previous efforts they've made to solve their problems. It is at this point that we may begin to make suggestions to each partner, but we must beware of spouses triangling us into their relationship, such as, "Last week you suggested to my wife that she use humor instead of anger when I'm inattentive to her, but she didn't do what you suggested." Or, "You told my husband not to repeat his points more than 5 times, but he did. He repeated himself 8 times. I counted." Early on in couples therapy, we often share with partners our view of the characteristics of intimate relationships, which we drew primarily from our friend and colleague Robert J. Greene. We urge partners to take this list home and discuss it, thinking through whether it fits with their values, if there are other characteristics they think are important, or if some of those we've included are not essential. And of course, we urge them to consider their values in relation to their family of origin experiences. The list goes like this: closeness and caregiving, made up of warmth, time together, nurturance, intimacy, and consistency. Open communication, made up of self-disclosure, openness, and the ability to face conflict and differences without avoidance. And lack of intrusiveness, the lack of separation anxiety, possessiveness, jealousy, overreactivity to the other's life problems, lack of aggressive criticism, hurtful attacks, or attempts to dominate or diminish the other in disagreements, or assuming you know the other's feelings better than he or she does. And respecting the partner's need for privacy, time, and space alone. If partners have been in triangles with their parents or siblings, Or if there were three generational triangles, including grandparents, we will want to help couples pay attention to the impact of those experiences on their relationship with each other. In exploring the issue of sibling constellation, we will want to help spouses become aware of the problems they may have developed naturally by coming from non-congruent sibling constellations. Typically, our sibling patterns growing up are what we have become accustomed to, and if they are not a good fit with our spouse's experience, it can cause problems. The primary factors with siblings are gender, birth order, distance apart in age, and any traumatic loss or dysfunction that has affected sibling relationships. For example, if both spouses are youngest, we might expect them each to be waiting around for the other to get things organized. Two oldests may both expect to be the leader and end up in continuous couple battles for control. Spouses who are middle children have sometimes felt lost growing up because they don't have a niche. They may at times feel unappreciated by a spouse, and they may try harder. They may also have more flexibility because of being in the middle, and they tend to be good mediators. Two only children might have trouble sharing altogether. And a spouse who has had to fill in for a dysfunctional sibling might expect to have to do the same in an intimate relationship with a spouse. A husband who has no sisters and a wife who has no brothers will also generally have new learning to do about the other gender, as will spouses of the same gender who are breaking new ground altogether and challenging often entrenched societal norms for couple relationships. The ideal couple, in terms of sibling constellation, is supposed to be the older brother of a younger sister who marries the younger sister of an older brother. Each spouse grew up with a sibling of the other gender and in a pattern that matched the pattern they have now, older brother, younger sister. Next best would be the younger brother of an older sister who marries the older sister of a younger brother. Their sibling constellations match, but society expects men to be the leaders, so others may see the wife as henpecking her husband or the husband as being too passive in relation to his wife's control. The most difficult matches of all are thought to be the oldest brother of brothers, and the more the worse, marrying the oldest sister of many sisters, since they would both fight for control and be less familiar with the other gender in a personal way. Similarly problematic could be the youngest brother of brothers marrying the youngest sister of sisters, both of them waiting around for someone to organize things. If partners come from different cultural backgrounds, they may have cultural conflicts without even realizing it. For example, the Irish have, for historical reasons, tended in close personal encounters to use distancing to avoid confrontation. An Italian spouse may have no fear at all of personal conflict, but a great fear of distance as abandonment. So the very first defense for an Irish partner might be the most threatening for his or her Italian spouse, and the Italian's first defense to get into conflict might be the very most upsetting to the Irish spouse. There are many dimensions of spouses' social location and background that are important to consider. Cultural and ethnic differences, gender inequalities, financial status and earning power, sibling position, racial inequalities, education, social class background and status, inequalities related to sexual orientation. Couples who come from different social locations will also tend to have a steep learning curve. Societal expectations generally operate in the direction of spouses wanting to move up in class, so the spouse from the less educated or poorer background will generally be pressed to move toward the other social status, and those from higher status are less likely to appreciate the problems of difference in power and social status of their partner. Because women are generally expected also to accommodate to their husbands and people of color to white people, The inequities may be compounded and must always be taken into account in therapy. Finally, we offer couples rules of thumb for relating. The rules of couple relating are, of course, basically the same as the rules for all other relationships. The most obvious rule: never treat your partner with disrespect, contempt, or vulgarity. The basic rules for relating are: don't attack, don't defend, don't placate, don't shut down, and never stay in a relationship interchange longer than you can afford to be generous. Once you become disparaging, reactive, or disrespectful, you should take a break and come back to the issue later. Offer criticism only when you can surround it with a ratio of 4 compliments for each criticism. Do not repeat the same advice or suggestion to your partner more than 5 times. After that, you should realize they are undoubtedly not listening and redirect your helpful energy elsewhere.